When you were a kid, grown-ups probably told you to bundle up on a cold day or else you might get sick. Turns out, they were right. Based on new scientific research, we now have a biologic reason why cold weather makes us more likely to get sick. Let's get into it. What's up everyone, Mike Muellner here. I'm an internal medicine doctor from Los Angeles, California, and today we're going to talk about why it's more likely for you to get sick when it's cold. This certainly hits home for me because it is literally freezing right now in California. We even got a picture of snow behind the Hollywood sign. But anyway, it sounds like an obvious statement. You get cold, you get chilled, and then you're more likely to get sick. I mean, we even call it catching a cold. It's the name of the disease. But here's the thing, even though this seems like common knowledge, scientists never really understood exactly why getting cold makes us more likely to get infections. And so for the longest time, we thought that maybe it's not so much the cold weather, but rather on cold days, people spend more time indoors, we're in closer contact with one another, we're huddled around the fireplace, breathing each other's germs, and maybe it's that closer exposure that makes us more likely to get sick as opposed to the actual cold weather itself. That was the common thought for years and years. But now, thanks to new research that was just published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology, we may be changing our tune. So this research looked specifically at the nose. And the reason for this is because the nose is often our first point of contact with respiratory viruses. You're walking down the street and somebody coughs in your face. Those viruses don't just randomly get absorbed through the skin. They enter the body through the mouth, or perhaps even more commonly, the nose. So for this reason, it made a lot of sense to study the nose. Now, what the scientists did is they took tissue samples from people undergoing surgery, and they found that the cells in this tissue produce something called extracellular vesicles. So you can think of this as millions of tiny little bubbles. And in these bubbles are antimicrobial DNA and protein. So when viruses enter the nostril, these vesicles swarm them, millions of them. It's like you can think of it as disturbing a hornet's nest. They all come out and attack these viruses, and they act as decoys. So the viruses bind to the vesicles, not our actual cells, and in this way, the extracellular vesicles prevent the viruses from entering our bodies. Okay, but what does all this have to do with getting cold and then subsequently becoming ill? Well, the scientists looked at that too. They got real volunteers. These are actual live people, not just tissue samples, and subjected them very briefly to colder temperatures. And what they found is that the temperature inside the nose did decrease by about 10 degrees. And this makes sense. If you've ever been out on a cold day, you feel your ears, you feel the tip of your nose, it can be pretty cold because these are very external parts of the body. Contrast this with, let's say, the back of the throat, which the body will regulate to stay pretty much at 98 degrees. Now, with this understanding, they then went back to the tissue samples, subjecting them to the same decrease in temperature, and what they found was that the immune response in these colder temperatures was less robust, not only in the number of vesicles released, which decreased almost by 50%, but also in the quality of the vesicles. Each extracellular vesicle, each little bubble contained fewer antimicrobial proteins. As a result of all of this, our initial first line of defense in the nose was less effective at preventing viruses from entering the body. Therefore, in colder temperatures, we are more likely to become ill. Now, this research is pretty new, and I think more studies will be needed to help confirm these findings and also look at other variables such as humidity. How does changes in humidity, in addition to just changes in temperature, also affect these extracellular vesicles? But it is pretty exciting to now have a scientific basis for why cold weather tends to make us sick. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like medical content like this, feel free to hit the subscribe button there or check out another video here, and I'll see you guys next time.